Not too long ago, I put out a video discussing the planning consideration of lowering your retirement taxes. We looked at a number of areas that were vitally important, but there was one comment that has stuck with me. It lamented the fact we didn't do a comparison of tax rates when looking at tax planning. More specifically, what would the key differences be in looking at the use or conversion of IRA assets at 12 versus 22%? Does it do anything, and how might it affect projected retirement taxes? So in this video, we're going to take a look at just that. We use a couple that is retiring at age 60 with only pre-tax 401 and IRA investments and explore two main items. Number one, will tax planning show them any projected benefits at all? And number two, if it does, which ends up better for them, using the 12 or 22% marginal tax bracket? But first, I'm Curtis Crossland of Suttle, Crossland Wealth Advisors, and the purpose of this channel is to discuss financial topics and ultimately help people build more tax-efficient retirements. So let's get straight into this topic. First thing we want to do is set the stage for this review. So here we're going to meet Joe and Jane. Both are 60 years old and both retired at the beginning of this year. In looking at their plan, their concerns have shifted from being able to retire to more optimization of their plan in retirement, which for us in this video means the tax planning. So let's take a look at their assets and see a breakdown of what they're working with. Here we can see Joe's IRA is close to $916,000. We have Jane's IRA at $414,000 plus. They do have a joint banking account, which has $180,000 right now. And then the primary home is at $540,000. Net worth for them is just over $2 million. But if we actually take out the value of the home, then we're looking at cash and investments right about the $1.5 million mark. Next, we'll move over and we're going to take a look at their goals. And the goals here are very straightforward. Retirement expense, we're looking at $6,500 a month. Additional expenses include national average for healthcare costs for pre-Medicare and then Medicare years as well. And then a desire to see the world at $15,000 a year for the next 10 years. Looking at their income sources, we're only seeing two things, and that's going to be Social Security for both of them. If we pull open Joe's Social Security, we see that he is going to plan to take it at full retirement age, 67. Then we can see that monthly benefit amount that he's going to earn at $2,800. If we jump over to Jane, we see that at full retirement age, or 67 for her, her monthly benefit amount is going to be $1,900. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to deep dive Social Security. I've done a couple other Social Security videos. I'll put a link to those if you want to check those out. We're going to go with full retirement age for both of them in this breakdown. And we're also going to be looking at a life expectancy of age 90. So just as a quick recap on the assumptions for what we're looking at here, this is it. Clients are age 60. They are retired now. They're going to spend $6,500 a month. They have roughly $1.5 million between pre-tax IRA accounts and then some cash. And they will be using a combination of investments and savings and Social Security to help fund their retirement. Next, we're going to jump over and take just a quick look at the retirement analysis breakdown for them. And what we can see here is that they have a 97% probability of success according to the Monte Carlo. And then as well, they have a just over $3 million median terminal account balance based on the Monte Carlo as well. So when we take a look at the distribution here, we can see something that's fairly idealized. You know, between that 5 and 95% confidence level, we don't actually see that crash down to zero at any point before age 90. A couple other just really quick things to note. It does appear that in their projections, they would have an increase in the portfolio value over time. That's a shared sentiment that we saw in the Monte Carlo as well. Obviously, they have about $1.5 million currently, but we're seeing that projected to go a little bit higher. This here is a bit more of a linear view. It's not going to have the median value of the Monte Carlo, but it's going to show us at almost 3.9 million when we look at a more linear projection of the growth of their assets. And this could end up creating issues as time goes on, just as it relates to tax planning. If you have higher balances, that can mean higher required minimums, that can mean higher taxes. Let's take a look at the withdrawal rate on their current plan. So they know at least up front, they're planning to take Social Security at 67, as we mentioned. There's going to be some fairly high withdrawal rates, at least in these first years up until they start Social Security. And then after that, we can see a more manageable withdrawal rate that eventually starts to pick up as they also start to begin required minimums right around age 75. So now comes the fun part. Let's assess the merits of a conversion strategy, and let's start with the 12%. So we're going to come over here, and what we want to do is look at our conversion target of 12%, and we're going to say that we're going to fill up the tax bracket all the way to the 12% level. Now you might notice this says 12/15. The reason it does that is because we don't know what's going to happen yet after 2025. That is when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to sunset. At that time, if there is no intervention by Congress, whether they extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act or if they institute something else completely different, there'd be a reversion to the prior tax code where 12% would then revert back to 15%. So that's why you're seeing 12/15. So bear that in mind. Later, when we actually look at 22, it'll say 22/25. That's the reason. So if we fill up that 12% as part of our conversion strategy, well, what do we see? Initially, we can see roughly 437,000 more tax-adjusted ending wealth. And visually, when we come over here and we look at this chart, what we're seeing in the green shaded section is us converting in years up to the top of that 12% bracket versus the blue shaded section, which is to have no conversion strategy, basically take things as they come, do our required minimums as they come, and pay the taxes as we go. When we dive a little bit deeper into more comparison, well, here we can see that they can work to convert 92% of their pre-tax money over to the tax-free or Roth IRA side. We're also seeing that projection of a little bit more of that ending portfolio value as a part of this particular view. When we take a look at the withdrawals, we're actually seeing something that appears to be a little bit more stable in doing the conversion strategy versus not doing the conversion strategy. There is higher withdrawals up front in doing conversion because you're essentially prepaying some of that tax up front. But notice as the years stretch on that the conversion approach has a much gentler slope to the increasing of those distributions versus doing no conversion and having lower initial years, but then the potential for much higher years that escalate much more rapidly. If we look over here at the required minimum distributions, we see that they are a lot lower and way more manageable. And don't let this chart fool you. We can see that the most they have in RMD projections is just over 55,000 in the conversion strategy. But no conversion, they're starting at 88 and it only goes up from there. And notice how over here they actually taper off instead of continuing to balloon. And then the big one, this is going to be the projection of federal taxes paid through the end of retirement. Over here projects to just over 602,000 if we do the conversion at 12% versus no conversion has us at just over 701,000. And then over here on the Monte Carlo, if we actually do that 12% distribution, we have an unchanged probability of success at 97%, but a little bit of a dip in the median value of the accounts at age 90. And again, this is probably just due to the front loading of more taxes initially to try to get more tax savings in total. But I do think we can look at this objectively and say that there appears to be some real value in pursuing this strategy for Joe and Jane. There's real potential for tax savings. And if they have a family that they want to leave a legacy to, I cannot overstate this enough. Having 10 years of additional growth on a tax-free account like a Roth IRA compared to, say, a pre-tax account, it's insane. So someone inheriting a pre-tax account, they may also be inheriting a giant tax headache. And this could be during their most productive earning years. An inherited Roth would continue to grow and then be distributed tax-free, at least according to current tax law, and that could have a tremendous difference on the wealth for future generations. But now let's take a look at the 22% bracket, and then we're going to make a comparison between the 12 and the 22. So coming back over here to our tax section, instead of doing the 12%, we're going to instead say, okay, fill me up to the 22% bracket. So with the 22% bracket, we see a nice tax-adjusted ending portfolio, just over 505,000. And you'll notice in the chart over here, we're obviously front-loading a lot more of the tax, but look when this ends, roughly age 69 or just before age 70. And that's a big deal because when we come over here and we take a look at the comparison, they can actually work towards 100% tax-free or Roth IRA when it comes to those pre-tax dollars. So imagine being able to do a very heavy or front-loaded conversion, getting everything from the pre-tax over to the Roth side and doing that all before you have to start worrying about required minimum distributions. So it does appear possible, and I want to highlight that at least in their case, they do have a chance to get those conversions done before the RMDs kick in. When we take a look at withdrawals, not surprisingly, we can see that they're very front-loaded. But then notice this. Once they hit kind of age 70, they have virtually total control of what they're going to distribute. They only have to take out what they want from that point. There are no RMDs. And compare that over here with no conversion, where they're going to be told they have to take out a specific amount every single year because of those required minimum distributions. And then the big one again, we're looking at the projection of federal taxes paid. So converting up to that 22% bracket, we have a projected total federal tax paid of just under $325,000 versus the $701,000 of no conversion strategy. If we come over here and we take a look at the Monte Carlo, we do see that it dips, but it's a whopping 1%, down to 96% on that probability of success. And then a bit more of a dip on the median terminal balance at just over 2.9 million. But again, this is likely due to front loading those taxes. And much like the conversion at 12%, we can also objectively look at this and say there's a lot of real value on the table with the 22% conversion strategy versus doing nothing. So I think it's fair to say that doing conversions at up to either the 12 or 22% bracket make an impact versus no conversion on our tax planning. But now let's take a look at a comparison between the two for Joe and Jane, and let's see if there's a decidedly better projection. So the first thing to note is that with the 12% conversion strategy, we're seeing a tax-adjusted ending portfolio value of more than $437,000 compared to no conversion. And then with the 22%, we're seeing a tax-adjusted ending portfolio value of more than $505,000 compared to doing no conversion. So the 22% provides us a projection of a little bit more ending balance. So next we can see that at the 12% conversion level, they can work to get 92% of that pre-tax balance over to the Roth versus 100% at the 22% level. And again, we just have to note that with the 22% level, they were able to get those conversions done potentially by age 70. We have a federal taxes paid estimate of roughly $602,000 with the 12% conversion level and nearly $325,000 with the 22% level. Converting up to the 12% bracket gives us a Monte Carlo at 97% versus 96% if they were to convert up to the top of the 22% bracket. So ultimately, I think what this decision is going to boil down to for Joe and Jane is how much they value two things. Number one, do they want to try to pay the least amount of tax possible, at least according to projections? And number two, do they want to try to leave as much as possible tax-free to family? There's also a lot to be said for having lower or no projected required minimum distributions and only taking money on your schedule. But a lot can change, and there are pros and cons to each approach. We have no idea how Congress might affect the tax code, so there's legislative risk. We have no idea how markets are actually going to perform in a 40+ year period. This can also affect tax projections. We have no idea if either will make it to 90 or if one or the other will die early. If markets are better than expected, RMDs may be hit harder in future years if they don't run any conversion strategies. Better than expected returns would also make Roth IRA accounts even more valuable, especially to beneficiaries. You know, beneficiaries could let them continue to grow for another 10 years after Joe and Jane pass and avoid having a lot of their own tax headaches due to inheritance and a much bigger chance at tax-free wealth. Poor market returns may have the exact opposite effect. The point is that there is no perfect answer. This is going to have to be a year-by-year assessment. That said, we've looked at more of a macro view of the next 30 years of their lives, and at least in this case for Joe and Jane, it appears pushing towards the 22% bracket may ultimately yield better results if everything falls in line. But each person's situation can be wildly different and should be assessed on its own merits. I'm always amazed when running these tax planning scenarios. I've had clients that projected to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime taxes, and other clients project little to no tax savings at all. It's always situational and personal factor dependent, but I'd love to know if any of these numbers surprised you. Do you have a scenario that's different, and are you curious about your own outcomes? Well, so check out our links, but also let me know in the comments. Who knows, maybe I'll make a video discussing your concerns next. Once more, I'm Curtis Crossland, and if you want to see how we help folks build a more tax-focused and efficient retirement, be sure to check us out at SuttleCrossland.com and subscribe for future videos.